I was hired by a lovely lady to come into her house and rearrange her living room. As I walked in, the first thought that came to my mind was, what do you need me here for? I know that change is very welcoming and inviting to many of us. And I think that's what she wanted. I had done this for a friend of hers, and so she wanted to see change in her own home. She wanted to see what someone with a fresh eye would do to her home using her same things. And so when I got there, I thought, if I were just here to visit, I could sit down and have a wonderful visit with her in these surroundings and not be bothered by one thing because it was just a lovely space. But because she had hired me as a decorator, as a professional to come in and help her, I put my critique eye on her room and changed some things based on my technique and the way I do things and the way I see things. And it was going to be super easy to put it back in the original place if she didn't like where I put it. So I am very hands-on, and I could have stood there all day and talked about the what ifs and the possibilities, but I like to just get into it and just move it and change it. And you'll see that if you watch this video through the entirety, you'll see that I put some things somewhere and then I move them again. I think if we are creative, we're always going to have a mistake, if you will. It's not really a mistake, but if you're not making mistakes, you're not being creative. And so you have to try something somewhere sometimes to see if it's going to work. I think we can have the overall concept, we can have the overall thought of what we want to see happen, but the details, you'll see that some things were moved as we got further into the process. But I thoroughly enjoyed helping her and working with her and making her happy. And that's the goal, is to make the client happy. And I feel like I did that, and I walked away excited for her and excited that she allowed me the opportunity to come in and make some changes for her. As we walked into her home for the very first time, this is exactly the way I found it. We found it. I say we because Paula was with me. So I felt like as I started studying the room, I didn't want to walk into the back of that chair because there were other options. I'm talking about the blue wingback chair. And I also saw that the sofa was perpendicular to the fireplace and her TV is above the fireplace. So her focal point was and is the fireplace. And her biggest piece of upholstery furniture did not feel balanced or centered in the space. I was seeing that sofa needed to face the focal point of the room. What I'll be referencing here are the two tall cabinets and the chair up against the wall, as well as the placement of the art. My design style will always have symmetry and balance. And I didn't feel like the symmetry was there, nor did it feel balanced to my eye. The homeowner told me why she placed the art that way. It was to cover some nail holes. So I knew that was important to her, not to see nail holes when I was finished. She had also given me permission that I could take anything out of the room that I didn't feel belonged there. So as I studied that closed older TV cabinet, I just did not feel like it was needed in the space. The living room is sizable, and it certainly fit in there, It didn't feel crowded, but it just didn't feel needed. You'll see that's one of the last things I did finally remove, and I reworked that wall, and I felt like there was a lot more calm to the space when it was gone. I like the open bookshelf, I just did not like its placement. It's on a sizable wall, but it's not centered. And I feel like it needs to be centered to act as the secondary accent wall. I needed it to be centered because when I moved the sofa, it now is going to ground that sofa and create visual interest behind the sofa by being centered. Also, when I walked into the home for the very first time, not only did I see the back of that blue chair that I didn't really want to see, I also noticed the bookshelf. It was tall and a little cumbersome and absolutely no interest for me to be seeing that as the very first thing. So I knew I wanted to also move that bookshelf out of that space and create a smaller, more interesting little vignette. As I was walking back and forth and studying the room, I kind of spied with my little eye that painting leaning on the fireplace. It absolutely did nothing up against that dark brick. So that painting now was going to be the focal for that little vignette I'm talking about. And now the strong man comes in to begin moving furniture. This is a good place right here for you to see that that open shelf needs to be centered on that back wall. Something else I had to do pretty quickly was move the rug. It was not centered with the fireplace, nor was it centered with the room. It was off by 12 inches possibly. I don't know that you can see it in the video, but that also happened. I also saw tucked in the hallway a little antique secretary. I knew I had to use that some way. Remember, this is where that tall bookshelf was. And the piece of art I found over on the hearth. So now you can see the bookshelf has found a new home. This is where the secretary was, and it is a much more interesting piece. It's also a special family piece to her. So it made sense to me that it come into the living space so it could be seen, and the library could now be tucked in the hall. Normally I work by myself, but this homeowner is hands-on. You didn't know you were going to work in your own house today.
I love it.
Now we're going to work on this open shelf. It's always easier for me to work from a clean slate. Clear it all and start over. That's what we did. The homeowner has some pretty pieces, and I just gathered them from different areas of the living room, and I wanted to feature and give this shelf more intention. Before, it just was randomly placed with items, and she even said herself, after Christmas it really never got put back properly. But you will see even though there are a collection of clocks and there's blue and white, I brought her collections together in a balanced, symmetrical fashion. So you can see here, the little antique secretary is making its debut in the living room. I have people all the time tell me that shelving is so hard for them to work. They don't know where to start. As I said, you clear it all off and you start with a blank canvas, but it's trial and error. You could stand there all day and ponder it and wonder and think, and finally you just have to get hands-on. You just have to put it there. You have to place it, and you'll see that I worked on this small shelf several minutes, moving things and then taking them away, and trial and error.
It's gonna look so good. I like those pictures.
I do too. And I had forgotten about them, but when I saw them, I immediately remember the criteria for these pictures was to cover nail holes. So I tried my best to cover nail holes. You'll also see I might be fighting a little bit with my tools and hammer and tape measure and such. It's because I didn't bring mine, so I was using what she had at her house, and it worked, but I didn't feel as efficient that moment as I should have been. You may want to go back and look at the befores and now look at the afters, but this is now our finished look. Well, I think what we've done using your exact pieces, nothing new, we've brought this living room together, we've balanced it a little differently, but there was already warmth here, but I think we've brought this will sound oxymoronish, but a casual elegance to the room.
I agree.
So we've brought some of your more elegant pieces in combination with that casual pine piece. So we've really mixed it up, but overall it feels a little dressier, but not stuffy. I'm grateful and thankful that you watched this video. I'm Benny Jackson with Benny Jackson Designs right here in Lubbock. I would love to come into your home and do the same thing. In a couple of hours, we can transform a room. And with this client, her criteria was she did not want to purchase anything. And she had some wonderful furniture and accessories. She didn't need to purchase anything. But what I found myself doing was shopping in her house. I went to the dining room, into an office and a hallway, and pulled a couple of things into the living space. And they were accessories other than the secretary itself. But actually I did go shopping. It just didn't cost her anymore. So give me a call and I would love to come transform your space and make changes for you. Of course, I would like it if you would subscribe to our channel, if you found this valuable, if you enjoyed watching this. all you have to do is hit subscribe. So go down and even comment. Comment the word change, because change is always good.